Sierra Leoneans will soon know who their next president will be.
Absolutely. Polls closed at about 5 p.m. local time on Wednesday, and vote sorting and counting began after polling stations closed. Polling staff carried out checks on ballot boxes for presidential, parliamentary and mayoral, as well as councillorship elections. The election is the fourth since the country's civil war ended in 2002, though there was another election in 2012 anyway.
Now, Sierra Leone's outgoing president, Enes Koroma, is stepping aside, and 16 candidates, including 2 women, are vying to replace him.
We've experienced the tenure of the present party, the ruling party, and we've seen the issues regarding justice. We've seen the issues regarding the health sector. We've also seen issues regarding the educational sector. We've also experienced huge improvements in infrastructure as well. So I would like to see, with whosoever emerges as the winner, play a role in making a huge impression in terms of education in particular, in terms of the health, and also in terms of the judicial sector. I want to see justice prevail for whosoever, whatsoever level of individual.
All right, we have with us in the studio senior researcher of TVC News, Cyril Abaku. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you.
Yeah,
all right, yeah, the election was quite peaceful yesterday. Those skirmishes here and there, in fact, especially between two supporters of the two major political parties, but were you impressed really with the turnout and the conduct?
Of course I am, because drawing a comparison from what happened in Kenya and some other countries that we've looked at, on this program, I think there is such a high level of awareness. People came out to queue from as early as 12 midnight, and for a population that is the size of Sierra Leone, having about 3.1 or 4 million people registered to vote, that's quite impressive. Voting largely took place peacefully up until when police started saying that opposition leader Julius Bio's office or whatever was hacking or had hacked the election, the process, and wanted to go in there. But taking that aside, it's been very peaceful. All the observers from John Mahama, of the Commonwealth, and even Goodluck Jonathan of the, I think, IESA or so, they've all looked at it and said, this is quite a good omen, and if it followed through logically, I think it's going to be one of the best that we've had in recent times. Okay,
now the Sierra Leone has been devastated by 2 major phenomena over the past decade: the civil war in the country at the time, from 1991, and all of that, and then Ebola came.
3 really, mudslide.
Mudslide, exactly.
Yes,
Not to forget the mudslide, and it really took a toll. It had a toll on the country, on the people, and so on. But generally, the election has come, and the people have voted. What are the biggest challenges in Sierra Leone generally?
It's sad, very sad, Mike. We talk about elections in Europe, we talk about immigration and the economy. We talk about elections in Africa, we talk about corruption and poverty. It's the same thing. Very sad. One of the major contenders in the elections is now being accused that having been part of the system for such a long time, that when this whole Ebola thing even broke out, monies meant for Ebola were being channeled into private accounts. And quite frankly speaking, people are yearning for a better deal in Sierra Leone. That's a fact. It's a plain fact. They want a better deal. But the opposition itself, beginning from, I think, sometime when matters came to a head in January last year, when infighting, most of the people, of the 17 contenders for the presidency, apart from the ruling APC, most of the other contenders were people who broke away from the SLPP. Okay, so that sort of made the SLPP lose some momentum. And so you find that the opposition, for what it is going into the war divided against a clearly weak or weakened or rejected, so to say, ruling party. And so the permutation and projection is that this election is likely going to head into a runoff. Because in the past, I think, in the past 3 elections or so, we've not had I think it was only 2002 that we had a clear 75 or so percent for the in the first round for the winner. But since then, having a clear the legally mandated 55% has not really come in handy for any of them. Okay. So I think if they head into a runoff, then whoever raises the olive branch to be able to bridge the divide in the position camps can, you know, I mean, if they come together to form an alliance, then they can easily,
those ranks, you know, face become unified to face the more viable ruling party. And then let's look at the Kamara, really, who is the hand-picked
or anointed
candidate
Samura Kamara.
Exactly.
Of the APC by the president, by Koroma, of course, who has been in the system for so long. And of course, like you said, many look at him with suspicion that he has nothing to offer. But then Bio as well, do you think who would be a good candidate? Because it seems Sierra Leone has been divided by this election in the history since 2002. This election seems to have divided the people, and many factions of the country now exist.
For the first time, you see, they know what they don't want, but they have a difficulty choosing what they want. For the first time, they have a difficulty, you know, they know what they don't want, or they know what they no longer want, but there's a difficulty in having a consensus because you see, Bio's strong credential was the fact that in 1996 he ousted his friend from power, Valentine Strasser, you know, and handed power over to a democratically elected government. He stayed in power between January and March 1996. And so, you know, having done that, there's some level of goodwill that even as a soldier, he had some democratic credentials. But the part of why the SLPP is where it is today is because people feel that, look, he is now coming to politics. But I think in 2007 or so, run up to that election, he was quoted, and I think in a way he also affirmed it, that if the country, if governance degenerated to where it was in 1992, that he was going to topple the government. That's a major blot. That is one. And then the fact that his own party could have stood and easily won this election, but again, party members felt that, look, his military complex, his high-handedness, that, you know, he wasn't really giving people free hand in a party. And so the command and control structure of his own standing in the party again is what has partly also made is what didn't really create the room for more people to coalesce under the SLPP. So it's a difficult
but then he contested in 2012 and lost.
No, of course he did. I mean,
so right now, is he looking? I'm trying to say that does he even look like a good brand that people want to? Because he contested and lost in 2012. So what fresh ideas does he have, or has he really repackaged himself for people to say that, okay, yes, we don't want the anointed candidate of the president. Let us choose among these 16 other candidates.
Sentimentally, he has an edge. Sentimentally, he's been projected, you know, as having an edge. But as you see, the endemic corruption, as we always call it, as we have now come to make that right expression, that overused language. Endemic corruption is one. Ebola came, it had a field day. Like you said, the mudslide came, it had a field day.
Over 1,000.
So the fact is, even if the what we like to call viable opposition, whether the opposition has played its card up well or not, there is sufficient. There is enough room for people to look at what they have now and say, I don't want to call the party, what they have now and say, they've not done so well. Perhaps we don't even want them anymore. We don't want them more than we want this one less. I don't know what we don't want them more than we want this one. So
but they have no choice. They have to, you know.
They have no choice. Maybe
one candidate.
So my best guess is let them go into
runoff.
The runoff. I mean, what the patterns in the first round will now give us will give them a clear picture where they should get in the runoff, because the fact is that projections put it as saying that even in the first round, the number of people who don't turn up and votes that are likely to be considered invalid will be less. So if you have something close to 90% turn-up rate, it means that it will be sufficient barometer to tell that people really want to get
it's positive for the cause.
And then, if that same quotient is taken into the runoff, I think by then there will be clear decision where they want to stand. Okay. But as things are right now, there is clear. I think there's it's what they say standing between the devil and the deep blue sea, where you don't want one option, but the other one that's available is also not looking so desired.
All right, we expect the final announcement to be made in coming hours or in the coming days, depending on how they come up with it. Cyril Abaku, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Mike.
Thank
you, Azizat.
Right.